The average human brain has actually gotten smaller over the last few thousand years, not bigger. Ancient humans, on average, had more brain volume than you do. This isn't a fringe claim, it comes directly from measurements of skulls spanning tens of thousands of years, compared against modern human populations today. Paleoanthropologists studying skull volume across this time span have consistently found that average cranial capacity, a reasonably reliable proxy for brain size, was larger in humans living roughly 20 to 30,000 years ago than it is in humans living right now. Some estimates place the difference at somewhere around 10% smaller today, a change significant enough to be measured reliably across large sample sizes, not explained away by simple noise in the data. Before going further, it's worth being precise about what this does and doesn't mean. Brain size alone is not a direct one-to-one measure of intelligence. Modern research on intelligence makes clear that brain organization, connectivity, and efficiency matter enormously, arguably more than raw volume. A larger brain doesn't automatically mean a smarter one, but the shrinking itself is a real measured phenomenon that researchers have spent decades trying to explain. And the leading theories are genuinely unsettling once you sit with them. One widely discussed explanation involves domestication. Researchers have observed that domesticated animals across many different species consistently show reduced brain size compared to their wild ancestors. Domesticated dogs have smaller brains relative to body size than wolves. Domesticated cattle show the same pattern relative to wild bovines. Some researchers have proposed that as human societies became more settled, more socially structured, and less dependent on the kind of constant, individually demanding problem-solving that characterizes life as a hunter-gatherer, humans may have undergone something analogous to self-domestication, a process that, in other species, consistently correlates with smaller brains. This remains a genuinely debated hypothesis rather than settled fact, but it's taken seriously by researchers specifically because the pattern in other domesticated species is so consistent. A second related explanation points to the sheer cognitive demands of hunter-gatherer life itself. Living as a hunter-gatherer required an enormous, constantly active range of skills. Tracking animals across changing terrain, identifying which of thousands of plant species were safe to eat and which were dangerous, predicting weather and seasonal changes without any written records to rely on, manufacturing tools from raw materials, navigating across vast distances without maps, and maintaining detailed working knowledge of every member of a small, tightly interdependent social group. Every single one of these tasks demanded sustained, flexible, real-time problem-solving, often with immediate survival consequences for getting it wrong. Modern life, for most people, requires a narrower, more specialized set of cognitive skills, often supported heavily by external tools, written references, and specialized institutions that ancient humans simply didn't have access to. Here's where it gets stranger. Researchers studying the cognitive demands of hunter-gatherer societies still existing today, and comparing them against controlled cognitive tests, have found that individuals in these societies often perform remarkably well on tasks involving spatial memory, pattern recognition, and rapid problem-solving under uncertainty. In some studies outperforming average participants from industrialized societies on specific tasks of this kind. This doesn't mean hunter-gatherer populations are simply smarter across every possible measure, since modern cognitive tests are themselves culturally shaped and don't capture every kind of intelligence equally. But it does suggest that the specific kinds of intelligence rewarded and exercised daily by hunter-gatherer life, spatial reasoning, environmental pattern recognition, and rapid adaptive decision-making may have been considerably sharper on average than what modern, more specialized daily life typically demands or reinforces. There's also direct archaeological evidence of sophisticated ancient cognition that goes well beyond simple survival skill. Cave paintings dating back tens of thousands of years found across sites in Europe, Asia, and elsewhere show detailed, anatomically accurate depictions of animals, evidence of planning, symbolic thinking, and artistic skill that took real training and practice to develop. Some ancient sites show evidence of complex, long-distance trade networks with materials like specific types of stone or shell found hundreds of kilometers from their original source, implying organized systems of exchange, negotiation, and shared understanding across different groups. Some of the oldest known lunar calendars, notches carved into bone and stone tens of thousands of years old, appear to track the phases of the moon with real precision, suggesting sustained, careful astronomical observation passed down and refined over time, long before writing existed to record it formally. Perhaps most striking is the evidence around celestial navigation. Some ancient and indigenous seafaring cultures navigated vast stretches of open ocean using nothing but detailed, memorized knowledge of star positions, wave patterns, wind behavior, and subtle environmental cues like cloud formations and the behavior of birds. Successfully finding tiny islands across thousands of kilometers of featureless ocean with no instruments at all. Researchers who have studied these traditional navigation methods describe the amount of memorized, integrated environmental knowledge required as staggering, a genuinely complex cognitive skill set built entirely on direct observation, memory, and pattern recognition refined across generations. None of this means every individual ancient human was, on average, a genius by modern standards, and researchers studying this topic are careful to avoid that kind of oversimplified claim. Modern humans clearly have access to an enormous accumulated base of collective knowledge, built up over thousands of years and now instantly available through books, the internet, and formal education, resources no single ancient human ever had access to. In that specific sense, modern humans know vastly more than any individual ancient human could have known alone. But knowing more information, especially information gathered and stored by other people over centuries, is a different thing entirely from the raw cognitive capacity to solve novel, real-time problems using only direct observation and reasoning, the specific kind of intelligence that ancient survival demanded constantly, every single day, with real consequences for failure. This distinction matters because it reframes a common, largely unexamined assumption that human intelligence has been steadily climbing throughout history, getting sharper and more capable with every passing generation as civilization advances. The archaeological and anthropological evidence doesn't clearly support that story. What it suggests instead is something more specific and more interesting. Total accumulated human knowledge has grown enormously, an undeniable and continuing trend. But the raw, individual cognitive demands placed on any single ancient human, the sheer amount of active, flexible, real-world problem-solving required just to survive an ordinary day, may well have exceeded what most modern humans are ever required to exercise, simply because modern life has distributed and specialized those demands so thoroughly across institutions, tools, and collective systems that no individual needs to carry anywhere near that same cognitive load alone anymore. Some researchers studying this shift describe it less as humans becoming less intelligent, and more as intelligence becoming less individually concentrated. You don't need to track migratory animal patterns because a supply chain handles food for you. You don't need detailed memorized star charts because a satellite system handles navigation for you. You don't need to personally understand which of thousands of plants are safe to eat because that knowledge has been filtered, tested, and packaged for you long before you ever encounter it. None of these tools make you less capable in any absolute sense. But they do mean the specific, constant, high-stakes cognitive exercise that shaped the ancient human brain for hundreds of thousands of years simply isn't part of most modern daily life anymore. And some researchers argue that absence, more than any single dramatic explanation, may be part of why the brain measured in skulls today looks meaningfully different from the one measured in skulls 20,000 years ago. You are, in almost every practical sense, part of the most knowledgeable version of humanity that has ever existed, with instant access to more accumulated information than any ancient human could have dreamed of. But the raw cognitive machine carrying that knowledge around, the brain doing the actual thinking day to day, may not be quite what it once was, shaped less by necessity now than it once was by the simple, unforgiving demand to solve real problems, constantly, with nothing but your own mind standing between you and whatever the world happened to throw at you next.